Welcome to Social Innovation, the Kaleidoscope, created by the Cambridge Center for Social Innovation. We share the different colors and facets of social innovation around the world. I'm Berenice Pardo. Well, hello and welcome to Social Innovation, the Kaleidoscope. Today we have Stephen and Burak with us from CyprusInno. Stephen, Burak, could you please introduce yourselves and let me know where you're from?
So my name's Stephen. I'm the one half of CyprusInno, the co-founder of CyprusInno, which is a social venture here in Cyprus that builds peace through entrepreneurship. We are based in the capital of Cyprus, which is the last divided capital in Europe, if not the world, Nicosia, Cyprus.
Yeah, and I'm Burak. I'm the other half of CyprusInno. Basically, what we do is we provide digital and physical tools to entrepreneurs island-wide to come together and create businesses and joint ventures. We do that through several things. We have a database of startups, events, jobs calendar, and a knowledge platform where entrepreneurs can come and learn about entrepreneurship. But where we are now, it's we have our the social impact generator, where we have a co-working studio and a mini accelerator program within the buffer zone, where we host entrepreneurs from all around the island.
One of the things that I wanted to know, you said you are one half of CyprusInno and the other half. But if I'm not mistaken, you are also from one side of the island and the other side of the island, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We, by origin, I guess you would say, although we're both living in the capital now, I'm actually Cypriot American, so I came from New York, but my family's from Limassol, which is probably the southernmost part of the island, and Burak's from Kyrenia.
Yeah, I'm from Kyrenia, which is the northern part of the island.
So we're actually from like complete opposite sides. You know, there's as the first further you can get from each side.
Your team is quite unique in that sense, and CyprusInno is also very unique because Cyprus has, due to the geographic location, an interesting story and a somewhat complicated geopolitical situation. Could you go a bit deeper into why your team is so unique?
Well, I guess because we're sitting here now, you know, from originally from different sides of the island. So we are a mixed Cypriot team. We're comprised of Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, and if you dig into the geopolitical, situation, the conflict, you'll find that our island has been divided for nearly 50 years between a Greek Cypriot majority south and a Turkish Cypriot majority north. And so intercommunal contact between our communities doesn't happen that much. So through our work, we try and encourage that. And our team is an example of that in action, about coming together to create really unique projects that bring us together and build bridges between our communities.
You mentioned in the introduction that you try to create peace through technology and collaboration. So I discovered that there's a term called peace tech. Could you explain a little bit more what that is?
When we first started back in 2016, there wasn't much going on about entrepreneurship. So you're also surrounded by water. The closest place you need to look is to the other side. And we thought of bringing entrepreneurs together, which entrepreneurs are natural peace builders because they're continuously looking for opportunities for collaboration and growth. So we thought that bringing these people together to collaborate will be creating partnerships, more job opportunities for other people, economic collaborations as a byproduct that will build sustainable peace. And we've been seeing this in action since day one. We've seen people coming together in our first networking event, everybody isolated, speaking their own language. And after the first round of introductions where people say what they do, you see the stars, the spark. I need something from that guy. I can do something with that guy. That's a developer. That's a tech. So you see that everybody speaks the common language of business after a while.
And we used technology to enable a lot of that. So we first started as a digital platform. We went sort of opposite from the pandemic. We were a digital platform that went into more physical programming, in-person programming. But a lot of those early interactions between our communities happen digitally. And we think that at least kind of broke down a barrier to collaborating. And we see different applications of tech for peace in that regard, whether it's online courses that we deliver or online networking or other tools that we deliver digitally in order to empower people from both sides. But the result is not only are they getting the tools they need to build their businesses, they can do so together digitally. And then kind of the result is hopefully peace and collaboration.
You said that CyprusInno offers training. You have a job board, and you also have some challenges. How do you create all these offerings?
I think it's sort of on the fly. We test a lot, and we're always constantly testing new ideas because it's there's no right way, especially in the context of what we do. Doing this entrepreneurship building in a post-conflict region between two communities that are still divided. So a lot of the stuff you mentioned was some of the early on stuff. Like mapping things, creating resources, databases, just to get a picture of what's going on, and so people can see what's going on either side of the island. And then I think from there we identified needs, right? Like we did research, we saw feedback from our users, and we saw a lot of needs and gaps in the ecosystem and the market that were really common on both sides. And we filled those in throughout the years with different programs, trainings, boot camps, mentorship programs, pre-accelerator programs, many different
social media campaigns on infographics.
Yeah, exactly. Anything startup related you can think of, we've done, but always with the angle of being inclusive to both communities, to all communities in Cyprus, and with the hope that it would build a path towards peace. So, a lot of partnerships, a lot of funding partners, not a lot of funding, but a lot of funding partner support, and a lot of participation from the community, which helped us.
You just mentioned the funding partners. Can you explain a little bit more about who the funding partners are and what they fund?
Yeah, I mean, the first 2 years we weren't funded until 2018. So we were bootstrapping. It was funded by us. We're funding the small events, the website, etc., the things we're doing. And then we got our first funding in 2018 from the British High Commission here in Cyprus, and then the US Embassy here in Cyprus. And then we won some private awards and grants from the government of Austria, and then
the Stadios by Communal Awards.
The by Communal Awards from Stadios. And then we had the Commonwealth Innovation Award recently.
And most recently, actually revenue generating. So if you think about, social business for the audience that's listening to this, we're not just propped up by awards and grants and donations, but we've actually generated a sustainable revenue generating line that, even without some of these grants, I think we would be able to self-sustain nowadays, which is great.
That is exactly what I was going to ask. Congratulations for all the awards, but as you know, being able to secure a business model that allows you, how do you just say, said to operate sustainably is very, very important for your company. How are you generating this revenue?
We moved into our innovation center that Burak mentioned at the start of this social impact generator, which we call the Base by CyprusInno, which we opened about a year ago officially to the public, to the communities. And this center that we're sitting in right now isn't only a place where we're able to conduct our activities, but we're able to offer it to community as a community center. And through that, we've launched services, event services, rentals, facilitation services that help create a new space in the buffer zone for the community, but also bring revenue into CyprusInno. So we have a multimedia studio that we rent out for podcasting. We have a co-working space that has membership. We have also event space that we rent out to the community. So we're able to kind of sustain through these initiatives as well, and some consulting.
One question, at the beginning, you said you started digitally and then developed into in-person events, but then just as you had opened the base, basically, then the pandemic started. So which challenges and which adaptations, I guess, did you have to undergo to survive this period?
Well, for us, timing wise, we got this place in the beginning of the pandemic. So the lockdown actually gave us enough time to build.
Okay.
We had enough time to troubleshoot, plan, get some funding, launch the crowdfunding campaign, etc. So for us, it was perfect timing, the pandemic, thankfully. But when you think of the essence of what we're trying to do, peace building, it took us like 5-6 years back in general, not just in peace tech, but in conflict resolution in general on the island. Because at some point the checkpoints were closed, like back in 2004, 2003, so people couldn't cross. And then slowly they started relaxing the measures. So people who were vaccinated could cross, or you need a PCR test every 24 hours, something like that. It was very strict, so people weren't crossing.
I suppose you continued doing it digitally, but you said that it took you 5 to 6 years back. In which sense does the dynamic doesn't work as smoothly, basically virtually, than in person?
Yeah, the main issue was when everybody was working online. You invite them again after 8 hours of online work to join an online event.
Yeah.
So people they're already screen fatigue and they don't want to join. Also us, like you work all day and then suddenly you're gonna facilitate an online event and you're tired. So we did things that we had to do, or to keep close contact with focus groups, less people, roundtable discussions.
You mentioned before that you want to build bridges between the communities, build peace, etc. Why do you think that entrepreneurship builds those bridges?
I think first the entrepreneur, right? Just the character of the entrepreneur, his or herself, is someone who, and we often quote Stephen Coltai here, who wrote the book on peace through entrepreneurship, is someone who values productivity and growth over any sort of religious, political, ideological differences. So they're willing to kind of put things aside to grow their business. And that profile, I think, is what's made this model so successful, is that individual's open really to having conversation, no matter what differences they have with the person sitting across from them. There's also kind of the dynamics between entrepreneurship and conflict, like the Maslow, when you talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah,
it's more like when you look at most of the peace building events, it's usually interest based. For example, it's let's say an exhibition for peace, or you call it a peace building event. So the person who will attend those events needs to be at a certain, let's say, realization, or they accepted some sort of things to be interested in going to attending a peace building event. Somebody who is biased towards this type of things, or who has a negative thoughts about the other community, wouldn't necessarily go and attend an interest-based event on peace building. But entrepreneurship, especially in times of when economic situation is not that well, it's based on a need. So everybody needs to make money, people need to bring food home, they need to feed their families or themselves. So if there's an opportunity that is going to help them, they can put these things aside and just to go and explore what type of opportunities there might be. So you see different people, like people very pro-peace coming, even though they don't need something economically benefiting them that time. And then you see others that are not very supportive of this type of events, but they're in need of finding an economic opportunity. So it attracts these people, and the conflict resolution through that happens naturally within self. So with our events, we never mention peace building. We never mention directly any community and tell you're gonna meet these people. It's people coming, and it's not, we usually relate to Turkish and Greek Cypriot communities because they're the majority, but we have other people living here all around the world that they're within the business community and they attend. So there's also integration of these people within the local community and the business ecosystem.
We don't force it. We don't force it on anyone. We keep things very open. We focus really strongly on the entrepreneurship and the business and innovation side, but we keep it open, and we create the right environment for anyone to feel comfortable to come with their ideas, or to come ready to learn and connect. And I think because we open it up and it's very multicultural in the sense that, as Burak mentioned, it's open to, there's other communities in Cyprus, Latin Cypriot, Armenian Cypriot, the Maronites, and others here from Eastern Europe who are doing business here. We try and integrate everyone, refugees as well, who have their own businesses. We try to bring everyone together. And so like what ends up happening is we create kind of this microcosm of what, a united Cyprus could look like, but on the community level, whereas politically it's not moving, but from a community standpoint, we can really show what it could look like.
What are the core values of CyprusInno? What would you say?
Trust,
Yeah.
I think, right? Trust is one. Burak and I, our business partnership was built on trust. We didn't even really know each other before we started. We met because we wanted to work on this.
Yeah.
And we've been working on it ever since for the past 6 years, 5-6 years. But in business, you need to have trust in a business relationship, and that trust can be the basis also for trust in friendship and contact between quote unquote rival communities.
I think inclusivity is another core value. We try to include anyone and anybody, and try to create this link within the ecosystem by involving everyone to make sure that we're working all together in whatever we do.
And in this inclusivity, does that mean that the startups that can come to you don't have to represent a specific, I don't know, line of work?
Yeah, we're industry agnostic in that sense. I think that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Part of that is because the Cyprus startup or entrepreneurial ecosystem is so small that if we were to focus on any specific industry, we would limit our ability to reach a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So we do a lot of early stage training, so focus around the idea stage, and that opens it up to a lot. But the inclusivity comes from the encouragement for both communities to be in, the both main community, Greek and Turkish Cypriot communities, to be involved. Our outreach is often, it's in English, but it's also multilingual. We do different targeted campaigns to really, and we have partnerships on both sides of the island to reach those communities to make sure that they're involved. We reach out to professors and others, universities on both sides. Our programs are open to even, we have a gender equality plan, we have an equality plus plan. So we try and have our programming also open to all sorts of different backgrounds, genders. So.
You mentioned something about gender equality, and I found your ecosystem research in 2020. And this was going to be one question. Although the percentage of female founders is higher in Cyprus than in the rest of the EU, the disparity is quite significant.
A lot of our actions on gender for both sides of the island came out of that research, where we saw very low representation, regardless of whether it was better or worse than the EU average. And we had some feedback from one of our stakeholders, who's a female businesswoman, who said that that number might also be a little higher because of the prevalence of family business in Cyprus and sort of passing down from generations. But one thing we did in response to that, one, we thought, there's a clear next step here where both communities can work together to support and promote women in entrepreneurship. So that's almost a confidence building measure. And you see that on the political level in terms of the Cyprus solution or the Cyprus problem, that there's an effort to involve more women in peacemaking because they're not as represented in the negotiation and peacemaking process of the island. But in entrepreneurship, we put this plan together, which we're already acting on, which is to diversify the pool of trainers we have to include more women trainers, diversify the pool of evaluators and judges we have to include more women judges. Also, when we submit projects for evaluation, this is startups that apply to our programs that we end up accepting based on certain criteria. We blind it of any sort of identifiable information, demographics, gender, race, anything. So there can be no inherent or unconscious bias there. So that's unconscious bias is part of the plan as well. And then as our organization grows, of course, we'll implement HR policies to help with removing bias from recruitment and and that sort of thing. So the preliminary steps we've taken have worked. Actually, our last program had a majority of female participants, the social entrepreneurship workshop, I think 55 to 60%. So we're really excited about that, and we hope we can encourage more of that.
What will the future hold for you?
We're working on something, creating something regional, looking outside of Cyprus. Is very early stages now, but we have some partner organizations in Israel, Palestine, that we're hoping that we can work together to build something regional. Maybe a roadmap to do programs together and bring the whole region together and learn from each other and create programs according to the things we learn and exchange ideas.
But yeah, always the hope was always to kind of expand our work to the greater region and to other conflict or post-conflict areas, and use the success we've had in the past few years as a blueprint or something that can be replicated. We're very happy for people to copy us. That's the goal of what we do. So, or to build another innovation center somewhere else in another complicated area, a complex area. So, yeah, that's the long-term vision.